Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the D1 Coaches Pod. We're super excited to be here with you again. I am Mahoriana, mental performance coach and beach volleyball coach.
I am Coach Dave Roditi, TCU men's tennis coach. We're very excited today. We have a great guest, a friend of mine, a mentor of mine. He was coaching when I was a player. I believe that's when you started. We got Coach Tim Siegel here with us today, and there's excellent tennis player, Hall of Famer at Arkansas. Tell us about that. You were on the tour, top 100, got to play all the Grand Slams. Then you coached at Texas Tech for 23 years, got teams in the top 10, and got doubles teams to all the way to the finals of the NCAA. So there's so much even just there. And then we'll get into your life post Texas Tech with your family, what happened to your value. Tell us all about that. So lots to talk about. We'll get started. Tim, welcome to our podcast.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
Let's start with you as a player. Tell us about Arkansas. I know that's you love Arkansas and on the tour as well.
You know, I started playing tennis at a really early age, 7 years old. Played national tournaments throughout my junior career, and then made the decision to be a Razorback. Graduated in '86. We had some top 10 teams. Loved it. I knew that being a part of a team, you know, as tennis players, it's all about individuals, all about yourself. I love being a part of the Razorbacks and the team, and we had some great teams, quarterfinals in the NCAAs. My doubles partner and I made the semis of the individuals and the doubles in 1986. So I had a great time, but I also knew that it wasn't going to end there, that I wanted to be a professional tennis player, and I was fortunate to have done that, yeah.
When did you get inducted into the Razorback Hall of Fame?
2019, yes.
Pretty cool. You felt pretty good about that one?
Yes, that was a special, big surprise. You know, I think there were some players that were worthy before I was, but you know what? I think part of it was they knew I was a big Razorback fan, you know, and the coaching and the playing, and of course also playing as a Razorback, but also playing on the Pro Tour as well.
Yeah, you got to play all the Grand Slams. You got to play Wimbledon. We just came back from Wimbledon.
Oh, you were there? I didn't know you were there.
Yeah. Nobody did.
You know what? I sure love seeing TCU and your beautiful girlfriend here on the screen. It was great for TCU, great for your team and what you've accomplished. But, you know, being at Wimbledon, I played doubles on the tour. I got to around 100 in the world. And actually, it's funny, my daughter said, "Dad, I don't know if you really played Wimbledon because you have nothing to show for it. And maybe that towel that you have, you just bought it online." Actually, no, I did play there, and actually, it was '89 was my last year playing there. I played 3 years.
You should tell your daughter that there was no online when you played.
Yeah. You know, one day it was raining, so there was nothing to do. So I went down to the museum, and I went down to the Wimbledon library, and I went to the archives, and I brought down, and I found him and Devin, and maybe I should have looked up for you too, because I saw all the newspapers with the results of every day, so that was pretty cool to see.
It's such a special place. You know, I look back, in 1988, I was down 2-0 and won and a break in the third, and we won in 5, and then we lost to Leach and Pugh in 4 sets, who ended up winning it the following year. So
a lot of people lost to that team.
Exactly.
Ryan Harrison, we were walking around, and he said, "How far did you get here?" I said, "Third set," and that's when it was 3 out of 5.
That's right.
I never won a match there, but it's okay. It was great. And then you were the coach at Texas Tech, 23 years. I can't remember what the program was when you started, but I know where it was when you ended. Top 10 in the nation. Tell us about that.
I started coaching first at SMU. I was the women's tennis coach for 2 years and Dennis Ralston's assistant coach on the men's side. And then in January of '93, I took over at Texas Tech. And, you know, what I loved about Texas Tech is it's a great small town community, but everybody loves the Red Raiders. And my goal was to build this program up, and was really proud of the players that we brought in, the players that had some success, because Texas Tech tennis was not well known at the time, and we had some great teams, Sweet 16 and top 15, top 10. I love coaching. I love the idea of developing players. Their forehand, backhand, yes, but also about life. I love the van rides. I love talking about family, faith, things that were important, how to treat women, respect, all those things, being on time. I was a big stickler on being on time. And so those things, I think, mattered to the players, especially when they left Texas Tech. And so, yes, I loved winning. I hated to lose. But I was more impressed with the kind of kids that we had, academically and off the court as well.
Yeah, I remember thinking that you're so competitive. Most coaches are, but I would put you right at the very top. You love to compete. I can imagine as a player, I never get to see you play as a player, but as a coach, I could always feel the competitiveness, which I admire and loved. At the same time, when you guys would go on the road, I remember you would always have some kind of event that you would sort of take your coaching hat off and put more of a dad hat on.
Right.
And you would either go to a Saints football game or a baseball game. And tell us about your philosophy with the team.
I was a tough coach. I demanded a lot. To go to class, be on time, treat people with respect. But then off the court, I wanted to have a good time. And I'm a big sports nut, as you know. And we went to hockey, football, basketball, baseball. I took them to Universal Studios. We did fun things off the court. I wanted them to know that we're going to have a good time. But in between those lines and in the classroom, we're going to work hard. And, I think a lot of my players appreciated that. For them to have gone to pro sporting events was something that they really enjoyed, and they talk about it still to this day.
Yeah, I always thought it was something very particular about your program. Loved it. I would have loved that as a player. Being on time, I don't know if I would have made it. I know you. I felt like you were very strict about that. I don't know if I could have changed my ways. Let's talk about 2015. You make a decision in 2015 to stop being the Texas Tech coach and spend more time with your family. Let's start there.
As much as I loved coaching, I loved being around my children even more. At the time, I had an older daughter, and then I had a 12-year-old daughter, Kate, 10-year-old daughter, Ellie, and then my son was 9. Luke was 9. And I just felt like I didn't want to miss their sporting events. And Luke played baseball, and that was in the spring, and I couldn't be around. And so I made the decision to resign on July 8th of 2015, just a little over 10 years ago. And just knew that, okay, here's my chance now to be around my kids' sporting events, volleyball and cheer and baseball. And 20 days later, I got a phone call. I had resigned to become middle school and high school coach, which I was going to do until Luke graduated from high school. And so I was excited about, not many college coaches go from Division I coaching to middle school and high school.
Not on their own.
No, exactly.
Not if they don't have to.
Exactly. And I did it because I wanted to be around my kids, and I was going to be coaching where they were at school. 20 days later, I got a phone call. I was at the high school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on July 28th that Luke was in a golf cart accident. And the person at the other end of the phone said, I think he broke his nose. I got to the scene of the accident, and at that time I knew it was much more serious. The ambulance was just taking off. The helicopter was hovering above, and they told me to get to the hospital. Talked to my wife on the phone, and in the hospital, about 5 minutes after we arrived, we were put into a room, and this gentleman said that the golf cart landed on top of Luke's chest, and he suffered head and chest trauma, and he was in cardiac arrest for 7 minutes. So a far cry from just a broken nose. And so that, from that moment on, I knew that my life had changed. And certainly I knew that Luke's life had changed as well. We spent 44 days in Lubbock, multiple surgeries later, and then we were transferred just down the street from here at Cook Children's Hospital, where we spent 4 months. And 5 days after we arrived at Cook Children's on September 15th, 2015, we were in a room with nurses, doctors, therapists, social workers, and the last person to speak was the neurologist. And he said, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but based on Luke's MRI, he will never use his limbs, use his voice, or open his eyes. And I sat there just in shock as my wife is crying, and I thought to myself, this can't be. And so that was, at that time, that's when I knew how serious it really was. I knew going in, but that really opened my eyes to we have quite a road ahead of us. And Luke made his first sounds a couple of months later. And then on January 6th of 16, 5 months after the accident, we came home. And I then became Luke's primary caregiver, where I spent every waking hour with Luke while juggling my daughters and my wife. But I knew in my heart that I was coach and dad. I was going to coach him up. I was going to do what we were told he would never do. And he opened his eyes. He made sounds. He did a lot of things. And one of the things that I'll never forget, I was walking with Luke in the wheelchair a couple of months after we got home, and the Saints were about to play. I'm from New Orleans, so I'm the biggest Saints fan you've ever met. And we were walking around in the house in his wheelchair, and I said, Luke, move your tongue if you think we're going to win today. Started moving his tongue. I'm like, oh my God, he understands. This was 15 months after the accident when I realized he was in there and he understood me. And from that point on, we had this spiritual bond. We had a relationship that I can't explain. I was his night nurse most nights. I went to every therapy session. We spent 2 years driving to Fort Worth every week for 2 years, Wednesday to Friday, for therapies. So I was so blessed to have a son who was the greatest fighter. As coaches, what do we want? We want fighters, right?
Yeah.
I had the greatest fighter in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, first of all, it's a just life-changing event for everything in your life, right? Your whole family, your purpose, everything changed in that moment. And then you being his primary caregiver, like really diving into his, recovery development and everything. Tell me a little bit about who was taking care of you. Were you reaching for help? Like, who was your support system? Were you allowing people to support you?
That's a great question. And I will tell you that what I thought I needed was just to take care of Luke. I remember the phone would ring, the doorbell would ring, and I wouldn't answer it because I was so determined to take care of Luke. For 6 years, I did not have one night's sleep, a full night, for 6 years, because I knew that I wasn't going to be tired. I was going to take care of my son. And now when you get sleep, you realize what you really needed. And so to really answer your question is it took me a while to let people in. I think the most important message when I talk to parents whose children have had brain injuries or just to talk about my story, and that is you can't do this alone. That I needed people. I needed a support system, friends certainly, family, yes, but also therapy. I needed to speak to my pastor. I needed to speak to a therapist because I was so focused on Luke that I wasn't doing enough for me, mentally, physically. Do you know that I spent 5 months looking at monitors, brain pressure monitors, heart pressure, blood pressure, that my heart rate was only up during that time, and for the next 6 years, it was not up at all. I didn't do really anything for me physically. Even though I played tennis my whole life, I didn't do any of that. And so physically, I needed to do more, but also emotionally, mentally. So it's certainly something that's so important, I think, for everyone. Look, everybody at my age, your age, goes through something in life, right? We never know what someone's going through. And to think that people can do this alone is impossible. I certainly lean on my faith in God. There's no doubt about that. And so there's a lot that I have learned over the years that has helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah. And, when we're taking care of someone, in your case with Luke, right, with all the demands and everything, it's important for you to practice self-care, and not see it as something selfish, but just something that is going to make you better for him, better for your family, right? And that it's hard because you're like, no, like he needs everything from me. He needs all my time, so I don't have time for myself.
Right.
But at the same time, you do have to do that, right? When did you come to that realization that, you do need it to take care of yourself a little bit better?
I think it came from others when they saw me and said, you don't look well. You look so tired. You don't look like yourself. And because sometimes it's not what we think we see, it's what others see in us,
Yeah.
in relationships and whatever. And I think also my relationship, when a child has a brain injury, my relationship with my wife was fractured because I was spending so much time with Luke and not enough time with her. And I have 3 amazing daughters, and I wasn't spending enough time with them because I wanted to coach Luke up. I wanted to be that person that was going to be there for him, that I was talking to Luke as if Luke understood. And I knew that Luke was going to get better in my heart of hearts, that Luke was going to speak. And I knew, though, that in order for, how many times do you think I heard, Luke isn't going to get better unless you take care of yourself? I heard that a lot. And it took me a while to figure it out. And it probably was towards the end, probably a good 5-6 years into it, that I really kind of looked myself in the mirror and had others do that for me as well. And things really changed for me. When it came to Luke, most doctors will have said and have said that the first 18 months are the time you're going to see the most progress. And I'm here to say that in year 6, we saw the most progress for sure. Luke was making sounds. I would say things like, Luke, not only do I want to see your tongue, but can I hear your voice? He would open his mouth. And then I would say, Luke, I love you. And he would say, He was so close to speaking. And that happened in year 6. And then we always knew that COVID was out there. I took Luke to Saints games. I took Luke to therapies all over the country. We traveled on Southwest Airlines a number of times, and it was important for me to get Luke out there. And then in the middle of August, 10 years ago, Luke got COVID. And maybe I was naive, but I thought he'll be fine. And one lung wasn't good, the other was fine. They sent us home. And then 3 days later, I didn't like what I was seeing with Luke. I had to give him extra breathing treatments. And on August 18th of 2015, I took Luke to the ER. And they put Luke in a room. They didn't even put Luke in ICU. And my wife stayed with Luke, and I went home. And at 4 a.m, I get a knock on my door, get to ICU. And as I'm driving to the hospital, it's about 4:30 in the morning, I hear a voice, you're going to be okay, but Luke's not going to make it. And I fought that until I got to the hospital. First person I saw was the doctor, and she said, I don't know if your son's going to make it. I said, I know. And he passed away at 8:39 in the morning on August 19th. And from that moment on, now it's been nearly 10 years. I'm doing all I can to keep Luke's legacy alive, helping families. We have an organization called Team Luke Hope for Minds, which I started. I'm the executive director. We started that in 2018. And so my life has changed. I'm in a much better place today because of all that's happened to me. But it's a battle every single day.
What year did he pass? You said 2015, but that's the year of the accident,
right,
correct?
In 2021.
2021, correct.
Sorry, yes, in 2021, Luke passed. So it's been almost 4 years.
Yeah, being here in Fort Worth, I got to see and be very aware of all those trips that you were talking about for those 2 years that you were coming to Fort Worth. I knew on a Wednesday you were driving in the afternoon, and
right.
Friday you were going back. There was a therapy here that he couldn't get in Lubbock. I remember that. It was remarkable seeing what sort of the effort and the pure love that you showed as a dad. And we have a lot of parents here. And tell us about sort of the lessons. You talk a lot. I've heard you talk. You do a lot of public speaking. You tell the story. And as a father, what are some of the things that he taught you?
I always wanted to coach Luke up and be there for Luke. And I think today, Luke is coaching me. Luke has taught me so much. Number one, my daughters, they were never asked how they were doing. They were always asked how Luke was doing. But what I saw from my daughters, they learned empathy, they learned patience, And certainly those are two things that I was always aware of, patience being one. I think what I am taught every day now is I'm reading a book. It's called The Gift of One Day, or something like, I think it's called The Gift of One Day. And what I've now taught in my mind is to do the best I can each and every day. I was so focused on the past, what happened to Luke, and also so focused on the future. I didn't spend enough time on today, and I'm doing better now. And you mentioned about doing a lot of public speaking. Shortly after we got home, I was asked to speak at my children's school in front of hundreds of kids. And I thought, what can I talk about? And so that night, I spent all night thinking about what it was. At the time, I came up with 5 inspirations. Number 1, find your passion. I lost a lot of my passion to live. I've regained it, and I'll share that with you in a little bit about my organization, Team Look Hope for Minds. But I was the most passionate coach, father, Saints fan, Texas Ranger fan. I lost a lot of passion to live. I've regained it. Second one is don't ever quit. I would never quit because that boy that I woke up next to every night, turning him, changing him, and feeding him. We all have to go through things that we think, can I keep going? Luke taught me to never quit and continues to do that. Third one is to lean on friends and family. I leaned on no one for quite a while, and now I need that. And so the message, I think, what's so important is, to when you see someone who's going through something tough, to going up to them, you're doing okay, it goes a long way. At the same time, when you're struggling, don't keep things inside. I think that's what because I'm someone that's very open, but I shut down. And now I'm much more comfortable and confident in sharing the story because I'm able to help someone else. The fourth is to make good choices, be careful. Luke was on a golf cart, unsupervised at the age of 9. And I know those that are listening and watching, they've seen golf carts, modified golf carts every day in different communities. And it's hard for me to fathom still 9-year-olds unsupervised on a city street. So it's about making good choices, being careful. The fifth is to have faith. I talk about my faith a lot. I don't know how people can get through the things that I've gone through without my faith. The sixth is something that I added late, and that's find forgiveness. I think the most important message and the most important thing that I have learned from Luke and from all of this is to forgive. It took me 8 years to forgive the family. And I also heard, until you forgive, you can't heal. Easy to say. We all have to go through forgiveness at some point in our lives, right? Forgiving anybody about anything or feeling that you need to be forgiven for something. I finally forgave. And once that happened on August 3rd of 2023, I'll never forget, I forgave. And it's ironic because the number 3 is the most important, Luke's favorite number. And I was reading about a book about forgiveness. And when that happened, that changed my life.
And this is the family, when you say you forgave the family, it's the family that Luke was with when the accident
Right,
happened.
at a friend's house, right. And it freed me. I felt so much better. But I do know when it comes to forgiveness, you have to forgive every day.
Yeah.
And every time I go back to Lubbock, I have to remind myself to forgive, because I freed myself to be able to forgive, but also anger and bitterness. I was at a church service just prior to that, and in Atlanta, I was doing a book signing. I've written a couple of books, and this book signing took place, and at the church service, the pastor talked about anger, bitterness, and the need to forgive. Well, that was for me. I certainly felt that. And then the 7th and final one is to let a loved one's legacy live on through you. And, I was always convinced that Luke was going to speak. But you know what Luke is doing today and right now? He's speaking through me. And as challenging as it is for me every day, I will trade anger and bitterness for sadness. I feel sadness a lot, of course. It's not been 4 years yet. But I also know that I have a calling. I have a purpose. I have something that's far greater than me. And I have to remind myself of that every day.
Tell us about Team Luke, Hope for Minds, how it began. I know you teamed up with them, and tell us about what a win is today, what your purpose that you're talking about, that you're referring to in today.
I knew that I couldn't continue coaching in the middle school and high school. And so I had a friend of mine say, why don't you consider starting a nonprofit? I didn't know the first thing, but okay. So in 2017, I started Team Luke. I had a board, I had a vision, but that's about all I had. And then I met someone over the phone, Rhonda Johnson, who had Hope for Minds in Austin. She had started a nonprofit because a friend of hers' son had a non-fatal drowning. And we teamed up in January of 18 to form Team Luke Hope for Minds. And our nonprofit supports children all over the country. We're in 47 states. We have granted close to $500,000 to families over the last few years. We support children in a variety of ways. Financial support, we have support groups online, through education. Children who had brain injuries from non-fatal drownings, car accidents, ATV, golf cart, accidents at home, strokes after birth, all kinds of things. But our most important 2 days of the year take place in October in Austin, and that's our annual Making Connections Pediatric Brain Injury Conference. And I'll tell you guys, there's nothing more powerful and more rewarding and more emotional than to have, we had 120 families come last year. We have over 80 families already scheduled to come this year, where they're in a place where everybody feels safe, everybody gets it. You know what I always heard, and I even told my wife this, people don't get it. Well, how could they get it? Mm-hmm. What do I say to Tim and Jenny? What do I say to their daughters? And it's a message that I think is important, is a simple text message, you're doing okay, it goes a long way. And so I feel like what I'm doing now with Team Luke Hope for Minds, not only am I keeping Luke's legacy alive, I'm doing this with and for Luke as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, just talking about this, I think it is important if you can, help parents and other people understand how we support better, children and people with brain injuries, because it's not only, the empathy. As I told you before, my sister, after not getting enough oxygen in her brain, she suffered from cerebral palsy at birth too. So I kind of understand a little bit, not to the same extent, but most of the people is like, I don't know how to act. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help. Right. Besides helping financially in your organization, right? What other things can, people do to understand and support better people with brain injury?
Well, I think first of all, there's two types of brain injuries, traumatic injury and an anoxic injury. Luke's was anoxic, and which means he lost oxygen. And the fact that we almost lost Luke the first night. And yet there are plenty of people, maybe even in this coffee shop, in places that you wouldn't realize that person had a traumatic injury. Maybe he talks a bit slower, maybe he is walking differently, but still able to overcome. But I think the message is for parents is that every brain injury is different. And we're all told what your child isn't going to do. Every one of the parents I've spoken to and what I was told. I was asked early on, do you want to continue? What do you mean, do I want to continue? Of course I want to continue. Because Luke is going to do this and that. And I think quality of life is obviously so very important. But Luke's brain was globally damaged. He was never going to do this, this, and this. You can't get worse than a globally damaged brain. And yet, Luke did some incredible things. And I think the therapies that we did hyperbaric oxygen, stem cell, laser therapy, acupuncture, speech, OT, and PT. But the greatest therapy Luke ever got? Love. And that love came from me, that came from his family, that came from his friends. I think the message to parents is talk to your child and have both parents involved. I talk to a lot of dads who are working, and they come home at night No, be there for your child. I saw the improvement that Luke made, but I've also seen the improvements that a lot of the families that we've helped make, and there's nothing more rewarding than that.
When something like this happens, the family dynamics, obviously, it's a huge impact. Team Luke, Hope for Minds, how do they help and support siblings or parents, that others, not siblings, for example? I know you talk a lot about your daughters, and there's some things you wish you had done differently from the beginning, but it's obviously there's nothing you can plan for. Something like this happens. Tell us about that support. Is there?
First of all, I look back, and the one thing we shouldn't do too much, right, is look back. But I certainly look back. There's nothing I love more than being a dad. As coaches, sometimes we look at ourselves, that's our identity. It was never my identity. Being a dad was my identity. And yet, I spent less time with my girls when they needed me. They lost a brother. They went through so much in their teenage years, and then now they've lost a brother. I was so focused on what I lost, I wasn't there enough for my girls. I'm making up for lost time, certainly, for all three of my girls. We have a great relationship, for sure. We have a support group. It's called a dad support group that I do every month. We have sibling support group. We have support groups for parents. In our conference, we have, let me tell you this, whenever a child has a brain injury, the siblings have to go to therapies with them. They are tagging along. And in our conference, we have 2 days of fun for the siblings. Arts and crafts and music and dance, all these fun things, because I remember what it was like for my own daughters. And as you said, there's no blueprint for this. There's no, what am I supposed to do next? And now what I'm able to do is to help families with a blueprint, with this is what we did. And look, our organization is called Team Luke Hope for Minds. And that key word is hope. To give families hope. To never lose hope. To never lose sight of what can happen for your child. I have seen some miracles for sure. I look at Luke's life as a miracle. I look the fact that God could have taken Luke day one. And I think the reason he stayed with us is because of he's going to change lives. And, we have a Facebook page, Luke's Legacy, Pray for Luke. We have 70,000 followers. And people tell me all the time, don't stop talking. Don't stop writing, because you're helping us. And that's a reminder for me. Because sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, sometimes I want to call time out because I need the help. But I also know it gives me strength to help others. And I'll never take that for granted.
Being that person that all these families talk to and at this conference, that's a lot of, I know it's your purpose and it's why you do what you're doing, to help all these families even just get there. I know they come from all over the country. You guys, the organization helps them with travel expenses, being able to just be there. But also that puts a lot of weight on you. Are you getting help? Are you talking to people? How do you deal with that yourself to get that strength and energy? And you are. I mean, I'd say I see you every day. You can tell us about how you're playing tennis now, back after 9 years, and now playing tennis. You are, what I would say, you're back to that Tim that we all kind of were afraid of, and that competitive Tim, that full of life. You've always been so in. So what are you doing for that?
Well, 89% of all couples in divorce when a child passes away. It unfortunately took away my marriage as well, and that's such a sad thing for me as well. We had a great relationship, and we still do today. And so when I decided to move to Dallas in May of 24, so about 14, 15 months ago, I knew I needed to do this for me. So that was my first step for me, to start fresh. I'm meeting a lot of people in Dallas, but also I'm back on the tennis court. And, I had played tennis my entire life. The last thing Luke and I ever did was play tennis days before the accident. And I could not even see a tennis court. I couldn't support Texas Tech. I couldn't get near the tennis facility because across the street was the hospital where Luke was for 44 days. And it wasn't until I moved here when I started playing tennis again. And I'm enjoying being on the tennis court. It's good for my heart. It's good for my health. But also, not only am I playing tennis, I'm watching tennis. And I'm watching TCU tennis and SMU where I live there. And it's been great for me to watch. And I have kind of two hats. I'm watching you, I'm watching the players, and also my coaching hat is back on. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe this guy should have come in more, maybe. And so I do feel like it's come full circle, that I know how important for my mental health it is. And listen, I would be lying if I said I'm great. I'm better. I'm in a much better place than I was. I mentioned the two books that I've written. Two books. One is called "It's in God's Hands." The second one is called "Fight Like Luke: Transforming Grief into Love, Strength, and Faith." I mentioned those two books because I feel like because Luke's favorite number is 3, that there should be a third and final chapter. Mm-hmm. That book will be about how I've healed. I can't write that book yet. I'm closer, but I'm not there yet. Mm-hmm. I do have a therapist that I speak to on occasion. I speak to my pastor. I think it's important to know that we cannot do these things alone. We cannot. We need people in our lives, friends like you guys, good close friends, very close with a number of good friends, family, my daughters. I spend a lot of time by myself working on Team Luke. And the juggling act is I am helping families every day, but I'm also talking about brain injuries every day. Mm-hmm. So I don't get away from it very often, mm-hmm. and that's why tennis is so important.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, just listening to your whole story, your journey, is just, I admire you so much. Mm-hmm. We both admire you so much, you know, yeah. all that you've done for Luke, for your family, for all of us. And I know you're a guest today, but I'm going to ask David a question. So Tim has been a mentor for you. He has helped you in so many ways. And since I've met you, you wore the bracelet and you've been supporting the cause, and some other tennis players do it too. Tell us what has impacted the most in your life for what Tim has done through his, journey.
You got to give me a heads up.
Sorry. Sorry.
I think from a father's perspective, just our job takes us away quite a bit from our kids. I have 2 boys. So just that constant reminder of priorities and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and being very aware of both of them. As you know, my first text in the morning on Father's Day is Tim. And then also what the impact that you've had with our teams. I don't think we've had a team that you haven't had a chance. We're lucky that you're here locally. You come and talk to them, and it's just a constant reminder. Even just the quote of "Fight like Luke," fight on the court, fight with, for your kids or for their cause, their purpose, their education, their health, their development. It just carries on. You can apply it in so many different ways. So we're lucky that we have you right here. It's been really fun being able to play tennis with you. Come and join our Monday mornings group. That was a lot of fun there with Coach Center. There's so many different dynamics there that it makes it really fun, and then in a social way as well. So, but to answer your question, just as a father, huge influence of enjoying my boys, their sports, whether it's baseball, hockey, tennis.
Yeah, I have to say too, when I see you with your sons, I could be in the airport. When I see a father and a son, baseball was Luke's life. When I go to the Rangers and I see fathers with their kids, it's. But I also know he's still here with me. My son continues to make an impact. and he will inspire forever and ever. The football coach at Texas Tech, Coach Joey McGuire, does not give out number 3 anymore. It goes to the hardest worker and the greatest fighter in honor of my son. There's a baseball field named after my son. We have a documentary that came out. It's called Hope Beyond the Diagnosis. It's on YouTube. And it shares our story, how it started, and all the things that we're doing. But most importantly to me is that my purpose in life, I will never not do what I'm doing today. I know that I'm here to help others, that I'm put on this earth as a coach. And guess what? People ask me all the time, will you ever coach again? And my answer is, I am coaching. I'm just coaching a different team. Yes, I would love to be involved. Maybe I can be your 9th assistant. I can be a volunteer on the sidelines.
I would love that.
But I would love to. I love coaching. I love college coaching. I love tennis. But I also love what I'm doing, and I'm doing this because Luke is in my heart.
So, Tim, tell us, for those that specifically, you go all over the country. You have, tell us all the different groups that you've spoken to that, tell us that part, how you go around. It's not just sort of fundraising for your cause, for your organization, but also doing the 7.
Yes, we have events throughout the year to raise money. You know, we've had some very famous people from Andre Agassi, Andy Roddick, the tennis world, Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer all have sent Luke a video. We've had Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes wears the Team Luke bracelet. So we have to raise money to help families, certainly. And we do different events, and I enjoy getting out in front of people and speaking and talking about the 7 inspirations, but also just to inspire and make an impact. Because never take anything for granted. Be grateful for what you have. Live for today. I was on an airplane, and a woman said to me, do you have any children? I said, yes, I have 3 daughters and a son in heaven. And we talked about our faith. And she said, you know what you need to do is live for Luke today. And those reminders, those God things remind me every day to live my best life for Luke and my 3 daughters.
Awesome, Tim.
What? How can people support? How can support financially? Maybe join, Team Luke, Hope for Minds. I don't know. Maybe they want to help you fundraise too, or advocate, or all this. Like how can they reach out? How can they help?
I appreciate you asking that question, because we're always wanting to help families, and sometimes we have to pause. We can't help them financially today because we have so many on a waiting list. TeamLukeHopeForMinds.org is our website. People can donate on there. We're actually doing a campaign right now to be able to get people to come to our conference. We have a waiting list. So many families want to be there, and that's so important to get everyone there for that. And so that's important as well. But so you can go on our website and listen. People can share on your Facebook, on your social media about Team Luke Hope for Minds, because you might not know a friend of a friend of a friend has a child with a brain injury, and we help everyone 18 and under. We help financially through education. We support. And you know what I enjoy doing the most? Where I feel the most worthy is when I talk to a parent. When a parent calls me because their child had a brain injury months ago or years ago, and they're in tears, what do I do? What am I supposed to do next? There's nothing I feel more powerful than to be able to be there for them, and for them to hang up and say, thank you so much for being there for me, and I can't believe you're there for me knowing what's happened to you. Everyone deals with something, right? My pain isn't any worse than anybody else's. Pain is pain. For me, it's about managing my pain. It's about managing my sadness while also doing the best that I can to help families, and also, most importantly, to help myself. Well,
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Thank you for being here today, for sharing. I know it's, as you said, it's not easy at the same time. It's the most rewarding part of the day, knowing that there's someone out there listening that it's going to make a difference in one way or another. So thanks a lot for coming to our podcast.
Yes. And thanks, Luke, for being here with us as well.
Yeah,
and remember 3 words: fight like Luke.
Fight like Luke.
Okay. Thank you, Majo.
No, please support us as well. We keep bringing really cool guests and knowing their story and helping everyone, navigate through sports overall, you know, and how sports has changed our lives. So please subscribe, like, share our podcast. You start. You start. And then I go.
From the beach.
No, you say from the court to the sand.
Okay. From the courts
to the sand. This is D1 Coaches Pod. See you in the next set.